Times Better was actually a book that started out, I think, from an editor. An editor that we were working with said that librarians were looking for a book to teach children simple multiplication, and they couldn't find anything, and they asked if we could come up with an idea for the book. So this is, this was unusual, is that it was totally editorial driven. I think that in my day job, obviously, I own a gallery, and we were having a Dr. Seuss exhibit, I think, at the time, and I had just read Dr. Seuss's story, The Big Brag. So I decided that the idea that I came up with would be kind of a brag fest among animals, where they would each claim to be the best, and then you'd find out something about each animal, so that there's a little ant here who goes outside without their pants and has 6 legs. You guessed it, ants. We've never learned arithmetic, but 6 is better. That's our pick. So you learn something about an animal that has 6 legs, and then of course the brag fest comes in. Fiddlesticks, 6 the best, poppycock. You want 10 times better? Dial a crock. I have 60 teeth. I'm a great masticator. That means I chew first and I ask questions later. So it continues like that. You have a raccoon with 7 bands on its tail, and then you have a giraffe with 70 spots. And what number's best? There can be no debate. Tarantulas know that the greatest is 8. I'll tell you why if you look in my eyes. Come close. Can't you see? Come closer. Surprise. And you see that tarantulas have 8 eyes. You're hairy and scary, but you must be blind. See, I have 80 eyes, and that's just behind me. That's 10 times better. I hate to sound snooty, but even your mom wouldn't call you a beauty. And that, of course, is a beautiful peacock with 80 eyes. And then in the back of the book, this is a great spread where there's 100 bumblebees. And they're reacting against the chimpanzee, who has 10 fingers and 10 toes. And 10's necessary, all numbers are needed, but we humble bumblebees aren't conceited. Our hive has 100, but without each one you'd have 2 big zeros, which add up to none. No one's 10 times better, but may we suggest, if we count on each other, we'll all be our best. So that's fun, because kids can have fun counting. They learn a little bit something, and then at the end we have math problems that rely on what animals can do, how fast they can run, etc., etc. So I came up with that idea, and I sent it to the editor to see what they thought of it, and they thought, of course, it was brilliant. So I gave Leonard the text and asked him to do the drawings. And he called me up, well, a few months later, and asked me to come over to see some of the drawings he had done. And Leonard had a way about him which was always wonderful for me. He was a very intimidating, forceful man. But when he finished a new drawing, it was almost like talking to a kid. He was just so excited, and he couldn't wait till you see it. And and he was just so excited to show it to me. So he made me stand across the room, and he put all the drawings backwards. And he turned over the first one, and I could see him watching me. And he said, "Well, what do you think?" And it was the tarantula. The first drawing, I think, we have an elephant with one big nose, and then we have we have 10 tentacles here. Squids, which have 10 arms. So big nose, big deal. I'm 10 times wetter. 10 tentacles are 10 times better. And I looked at the drawing, and I thought it was absolutely brilliant and a beautiful drawing. But then I looked closer and noticed that it didn't have 10 tentacles. It only had 8 tentacles. But I figured I wouldn't say anything. I'd let Leonard keep showing me the drawings. And then he turned over this beautiful giraffe. And this here. And actually, this is first what he turned over to show me. And the giraffe, of course, is having a roust with the raccoon, who has 7 rings on its tail. And the giraffe says, "7? Good heavens, so what? Count my spots. I'm 10 times better. Giraffes have, well, lots. Me, I have 70 just on my neck. Heck, you can count them yourself. Come on, check." Well, it didn't take a genius for me to take a quick look and say, it doesn't look like there's 70 spots. But of course I didn't count it, so I didn't say anything. We kept going, and we saw a zebra with 90 stripes, and the starfish with 5 arms, which was just right. But as he was going through the drawings, I started to worry. And I went back to the first one of the squid, and I said, "Leonard, we have a problem here. That squid only has 8 tentacles. There need to be 10 tentacles." And Leonard looked at me, and he said, "You don't like the drawing?" And I said, "I love the drawing, Leonard, but there's only 8 tentacles.
Yeah.
And you need 10 tentacles." And he said, "Change the verse." And I said, "I would love to change the verse, Leonard, but this book is about counting by 10s, not counting by 8s. And then by that time I had counted the spots on the giraffe's neck. And I said, "And by the way, there are not 70 spots on the giraffe's neck." And Leonard said, "Who's going to have the patience to count them?" And I said, "Every kid who picks up this book will count every one of those spots, especially because the verse says, I have 70 just on my neck. You can count them yourself. Come on, check." And Leonard, without giving an inch, said, "Well, the other spots are on the other side of his neck. Giraffes have, of course, 2 spots," and he was very triumphant. He put the drawing down. And we went on that way for a while. And I started to understand that it wasn't that this great artist couldn't count, but for Leonard, it was impossible for him to think of the art as having a utilitarian purpose. He was creating the best drawing he could do, and the art was what it was all about. The drawing, the lines, the beauty of that. And the fact that art was, in this case, as opposed to our other books, being used for a specific purpose was almost beyond his understanding, because art was art.